So, good morning and great morning to you, our listeners. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Exit Strategies Radio Show. Hey, I am your host, yes, Corwin J. Millette, broker and owner of Exit Realty Low Country Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. Guys, if this is your first time tuning into this show, hey, y'all know what I say, and I mean it. You are in for a treat because our mission here is very simple. That is to empower our community through financial literacy and real estate education. Guys, we're legacy building. That is what we do. So I'm super excited today. And before we get into my excitement, I want to say thank you to our loyal listeners, those who tune in. Guys, I'm always giving you shout outs because I'm always humbled to encounter you all in the streets as you are listening to the show and you're gleaning good, useful, applicable information to help you on your path to financial freedom, to building and creating wealth, to building that legacy. And guys, today's show lines up straight with that mission. I'm super excited you had, and we always work to have the best guests here on the show. So we had to go back into the archives and bring a guest back today because he has done something amazing and he has some very good information to share with you. So those who may remember, we did a show about 1031 exchanges. We had none other back then than the infamous Dave Foster with us. Well, Dave is back with us today, guys. And Dave has written a book. And look here, we're going to talk about this right here. Ready? Let's listen. Lifetime tax-free wealth. The real estate investor's guide to the 1031 exchange. Dave, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm a lot less tired now that the book's done. I got to tell you, Corin, we were sitting there. I was waiting to come on, and I realized I've been like your dream guest all of my life because my entire life has been one of looking for exit strategies. When I was 2 years old, I was trying to get out of eating peas. Throughout most of my adolescent years, I was trying to exit from doing chores. And now that we're at the, shall we say, the final 50%, getting
yes,
out
sir.
with my wealth intact becomes a big priority. It's awesome to be here.
I love it. Well, Dave, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. So, Dave, like you are like the expert on 1031 exchanges or Starker exchanges, as some people may know them that have been around them for a while. So, Dave, if you don't mind, refresh our memories for our listeners on what a 1031 or what a Starker exchange is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the bulk of my life, I've just been a frustrated real estate junkie. That's what I wanted to do, where I've lived, what I've done. And in real estate, as you well know, Corwin, there's this cute little phrase that says, you make your money in real estate when you buy it. Because the idea is you buy it cheap, you then sell it high. There's all sorts of wisdom and smart things about that. But here's what I discovered over time. And that is that equally important is you get to how you sell your real estate determines what you get to keep. And ultimately, that's the name of the game. It's not just how much you make, it's how much you get to keep. And this is where the 1031 exchange is so powerful because it allows you to sell investment real estate and purchase new investment real estate without having to pay the tax. You get to indefinitely defer it. So whether it's for 2 years or 30 years, you get to make the money off the tax that you didn't have. And ultimately throughout, and this is where the book came in, because ultimately the 1031 exchange can be used to go throughout any real estate cycle because you can go from single family homes to multifamily to commercial to raw land, San Francisco to New York, anywhere in the country, any type of real estate, whatever the real estate market is telling you. And keep that tax deferred. Keep it working for you. And then you can also use the 1031 anywhere in your own life cycle. At the very beginning, when you and I had way more energy than we had money or brains, we just worked harder, right? We value added. Dude, but at a certain point in time on there, I don't know if you are yet or not, I get tired because it's the end of the day. And I'm tired of tenants. I'm tired of toilets. So I want to transition into something more passive. The 1031 exchange lets you do that. And retire, keeping the tax deferred until finally, and although we don't like to talk about it, we're all heading for the pine box. And the 1031 used correctly will allow you to die and give to your heirs your real estate with the deferred tax eliminated. You don't pay it. State doesn't pay it. Your heirs don't pay it. It truly does disappear. So I created this mantra called defer, and then die. And you'll never pay tax. And that, in my mind, is the ultimate exit strategy.
Wow, that is impressive. So, Dave, that's hilarious too. Defer, and then die. That is hilarious. So that really does get you completely out of it.
Here's the caution. This is what everybody has to be very careful of. If you have children looking that are close to college age, do not tell them about the last D. Or if you do, you might want to be careful if one of your children decides to go to medical school. They might be looking to pull the plug. What do you think?
That is priceless. That is hilarious. Oh, that's hilarious. So, Dave, let's talk about the book. Last time you were on, I think was the beginning of the idea that was sparked, and you were trying to get it out of concept, out of your head onto paper, and get it articulated in a fashion that is digestible, easily digestible by the consumer. So tell us about the book. What was the driving force behind it? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, the driving force goes all the way back to when I started doing 1031 exchanges for myself and for others almost 30 years ago. And that was the starter case, which really made 1031s available to normal investors like you and I, was a case that the IRS actually lost. So if you would, just imagine a scenario where the IRS has to let you do something, but they're ticked off. They're not going to make it easy, and they're certainly not going to market it for you. So I saw all along that one of the greatest tools that I could offer to people was education. And so that education filled in the gaps that the IRS was not going to, because it literally is 2 sentences of statute and about 10,000 pages of case law. So how do we distill that down without all becoming attorneys, right? So that's been my driving force all along. The book just became an extension of that, because I thought I want to get something in written form that will supplement all of the modern social media that we're using, but give it to people in a form where they can have it as a reference material. And so that's what we did, with a lot of focus on education, how to do 1031 exchanges, what they actually do, how to use the 4Ds to your advantage. What was funny, Corin, was that by the end of this book, I realized that what I had not written so much a how-to manual as I had written a strategy on how to, and this is beautiful for today, exit keeping your money. And that has resonated with so many people, because they can take the book and then they can take the 1031 statute and they can take their personal situation, and you mingle those 3 together. And out of that will come a roadmap for you to retire and die very well off.
So let me ask a question here. And so we're deferring taxes. Those taxes that we defer will eventually have to be paid, correct?
No, my friend, you have already forgotten the 4th D. Die.
That's when you go. So we defer them all the way until
death. But this is what's so important that many people do not know. When you die, your heirs get your property at what is called a step up in basis. So they inherit your property just as if they paid market value for it on the day you died. So all of that deferred tax over the years
goes away.
You don't pay, your estate doesn't pay, they don't pay. Tax free. So for those of us looking to do something maybe beyond just exiting well, that's a way to not only exit well, but to also give your children, your heirs, a legacy of wealth to start with on their own. I have one client, I love these people. He died after a few years, and his son inherited all of his property. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't see his son for a while because he inherited it at the step up in basis. So there was no profit that he had to shelter. But
Mm-hmm.
after a few short years, his son started doing his exchanges with us. And then he
Mm-hmm.
passed away a few years ago. The property went to his children. And we are
Mm-hmm.
just now starting to see his children again doing 1031
Mm-hmm.
exchanges. That's 3 generations. And they have not paid a penny in capital gains tax to the government. 3 generations. That's generational.
That is generational wealth right there. That's one of the things that Dave, in conversations and community meetings and things of that nature, that I bring up. And we oftentimes we approach real estate investing with a singular focus, which is making money, but we don't include in that how we can shelter money, meaning you're profitable, but you can defer these taxes, which means that's more income that you have remaining, or profit you have remaining, to reinvest into the next property. And you can accelerate your portfolio's growth that way. And if you're holding properties as rentals and things, now the rent money comes in tax free as well. So that's tax free income, capital gains
Can be
tax.
tax free because your rent can be offset by things like depreciation as well as expenses. So you're right. It's a way to cut down. Real estate ownership, in my mind, is the absolute best way to make money in the world, because the IRS gives you advantages tax wise, not only for buying and selling like the 1031, but also for generating income and providing housing for people through things like depreciation. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The greatest, I'm going to have to tattletale on myself here, because the greatest illustration of this is a mistake I made 30 years ago when I sold my first piece of property. And I made enough money, I would have had a $30,000 tax bill. And I didn't know that. So I paid $30,000 in tax. If I would have 1031 exchanged that one property and made 10% on my money over 30 years, that's not that difficult to do. Today, I would have over $500,000 just by not paying $30,000 once. That's how powerful that thing is. So when everybody says, well, you're going to have to pay it anyways, why not pay it now? Well, because A, you don't have to, you can die. But secondly, because every year you defer that tax, you get to make the money on it. And in my case, it would have led to over $500,000 in one transaction. So the 1031 exchange, strategically used, is, I think, the absolute best wealth building tool out there for a real estate investor.
I can't agree with you more, Dave. I mean, it definitely is for someone who, again, sees the long ball game within the industry, or looking at the long ball game because you intend to make it profitable. I mean, we have guests on all the time that are, and some may mention of this as a part of their strategy. They're doing flips and acquiring other properties. And as they're doing this, they're sticking in, doing 1031s and all that stuff and moving things around. The short version is they are definitely working to defer, so that way they're able to keep more money to be able to invest more money into the next
Absolutely.
next
Matter of fact,
so
let's take a second. We'll talk about flips. Would you like to? Because I've
Yeah,
actually got a whole chapter on flips in my book.
Oh,
Because this is
wow.
a very interesting strategy. Flips themselves do not qualify for 1031 exchanges. Because like you said, the 1031 exchange has to be the long game. So when your intent is simply to buy it, fix it, and sell it, you can't do a 1031 exchange. But the strategy that I lay out is to slow it down a little bit. And instead of buying it, fixing it, flipping it, you buy it, you fix it, you rent it, and then you refinance it. Because a refinance is not taxable. So a lot of people will say, when can I see money? If I've got a 1031, all that money's going forward into the new property. Periodically, you do a cash out refinance. And that money you can use for anything that you want. In the case of a flipper, because they've got that adrenaline need, right? They need the adrenaline fix of fixing a property and selling it. They use the cash out refinance to go buy their next flip. But again, they're not going to flip it. They're going to fix it, rent it, refinance it, and then take that money to go buy their next one. And literally in about 24 months, they can have as many properties percolating on a 1031 exchange as they would have by simply fixing and flipping and paying the horrible tax. And they're doing it all without paying tax. That's the thing.
That is awesome. So You mentioned this as a chapter within the book. What are some of the other subjects you pick up by chapter as you go through the book?
So the first section of the book is laid out as a how to do them. A little bit of history, but then all the nuts and bolts. Because one of the things that's so important is that you have to have a qualified intermediary involved. They have to be your
Mm-hmm.
guide. Remember, you don't want to have to sort through 10,000 pages of case law. So
No.
there's a section on how to do them. Then we go into a section on how to use them strategically, how to adjust your fix and flip model. This is a lovely one. There's a whole section on when it's time for retirement, how to convert a former rental into your new primary residence, because the primary residence rules actually let you sell that property and take some of the gain tax free. So there's strategies like that. And then I ended with several case studies, because that's how I learn the best. I look at others and say, man, if Michael Jordan learned to dunk by sticking his tongue out, I'll bet I can do that too. Okay, well, it doesn't always work that well, but I do learn best from watching others. And so these case studies are actual clients of ours that they have, and it's taking their journey and how they use 1031 exchanges throughout their life journey to keep the tax man away.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So, Dave, someone looking to get started or get a better understanding of stock exchanges, 1031s, where should they go? What should they do? What would you advise them to consider as they look to move forward?
I'm joking. I mean, the book is obviously a great start, and I really appreciate you taking some time for us to talk about it today, because it is one of my mentors once described it as going 2 miles deep in a 2-foot wide creek. And you got to be like half insane to even want to do this as an intermediary. But that's where I am. That's where I live. So because you have to use a qualified intermediary and we have to be so incredibly well versed, the idea is to plan well before you're going to sell a piece of property. We've developed a whole educational website at the 1031investor.com where there's a YouTube channel. By the way, please go there and let's subscribe and do all those things that as a boomer, I've been waiting to ask all my life. And 47 videos, I think, and counting, because there's new strategies coming up all the time. And you've just got to start your education now, because it's just like trying to find the perfect gas station off the interstate. You don't want to reach it and see it right at the same time you hit the off-ramp. You'd like to be able to plan a little bit, or you're going to take what my children refer to as the crazy Dave exit. So planning is so key. And you're right. Find a good experienced QI, holler at us, use YouTube, then vet what you see on YouTube, and educate sooner rather than later.
Dave, a couple more things for you. Number one, I want to make sure we get your contact information out. Where can people get in contact with you? Where can they find you? Phone number, whatever, website, whatever.
Yeah, the best way to catch us is at the1031investor.com.
Okay.
1031investor.com. And you can access our booking schedule. You can start an exchange. There are calculators for the nerdish folk who want to actually get into the math of these things. And then there's access, like I said, to the YouTube channel as well. We've tried to make this educational because some people have to learn what the 1031 can do for them. Some people have to decide whether the 1031 exchange is right. It may not be in certain circumstances. I'm a cheerleader for what it's done for me, but I got to tell you, I would not hesitate to not do a 1031 exchange if it's not going to benefit me. You know, there's another old saying out there that it's not the deal that you don't get that kills you. It's the deal that you get that you shouldn't have that puts you in the grave. Like the 1031 exchange, there's no penalty for starting and not completing a 1031. So you really need some good guidance while you're going through that to make sure that you're not getting that deal that's going to kill you.
Interesting. That is very good to know. So 2 more things for you, Dave. And you may remember this from before when we talked about it, but what I refer to as it's a hindsight question. 2020, you turn around, it's always clear. So I always ask this question. I like to ask this question because sometimes when we look and see where we are, we realize, well, man, if I'd have known this way back over here, I'd have been way down the road somewhere much further now. So for you, what is that knowledge or what is it you've gleaned that over these years that if you would have known this back in the very beginning or sometime considerably earlier, if you will, in your career, would have catapulted you to far beyond where you are now?
Yeah, I think there's two things. The first one really just harks back to my first mistake, the one that we talked about. If I would have known about 1031 exchanges, then I'd be $500,000 or $600,000 richer today. So that's number one. Number two, though, is I think that we live in a microwave age and real estate is a slow cooker. And we get impatient and we listen to these folks out there that want to churn you. And they're talking about the market's changed. It's a new paradigm. It's going to be different from now on. You got to buy now. You got to sell now. No, real estate has always been and will always be, some would say the Titanic, but let's just say a really big ship. It does not turn on a dime, but it is cyclical. And if you are patient, one of the beautiful things was that all of my clients in 2008 that did not have to sell their real estate are many times over millionaires now. Because what happened? The real estate always comes back. And if you can be patient, you will benefit from the cycles. Try to time them, it'll kill you.
That's a very good answer. You're exactly right about that. If you try to time them, look here, you probably will pass out or spaz out otherwise. So you're absolutely correct about that. So Dave, where can people get the book?
Best place is to go to Amazon and you can Google up 1031 book Dave Foster, Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth, the 1031 Investor's Guide, or the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange.
Good deal.
We're so Amazon. We don't even have it yet on our website, but it's coming.
And that website is the 1031 Investor, correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Perfect. So for our listeners, guys, y'all please look, let's go get the book. We talk on this show all the time about building, creating wealth, etc. So in the creation and the building of it, guys, this is a tool that accelerates that building. This doesn't help you necessarily begin that process of creating it, but what it does do is catapults you. It basically is a shopping bag and you're just stuffing it, so to speak, with additional money. I mean, that's really a way to look at it. You're able to squirrel away, save, and able to move forward. So our listeners, guys, please go buy this book. Please make sure that you're tagging and touching in with the 1031 Investor so you can get more resources, more access to how you can build wealth and create legacy for you and your family as well. Dave, thank you again so much for being on the show with us today.
It's always great to hang with you, Cor.
I appreciate it. So look, for our listeners, guys, y'all know what I do. Y'all know how I do it. Y'all know what I say about it. And y'all know I always put those things because I'm real about it, which is I love you. I love you. I love you guys. And we're going to see you guys out there in those streets.